God's word comes to us from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7, beginning with verse 1. After Jesus had finished all his sayings in the hearings of the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave woman whom he valued highly and who was ill and close to death. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him, asking him to come and heal his slave. When they came to Jesus, they appealed to him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy of having you do this for him, for he loves our people, and it is he who built our synagogue for us." And Jesus went with them. But when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you, but only speak the word, and let my servant be healed. For I also am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and the slave does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health.
The phone rang. Hello? Mr. Martin? This is the Kansas Highway Patrol. We've clocked you at 59 miles an hour. What? The voice of authority? What now? But only say the word, because I am one under authority, and I know what you say will happen. Voices, speaking, authority. There's plenty of that to go around in our world today. We don't have to look very far at all, because there are people who are saying, we are the authority, we are in charge. We don't like the way you're doing it, so we're going to get bigger weapons, and we're going to be more vicious than you, and we're going to conquer you, and then you have to do what we say. And then there are other voices all over the news saying, elect me! I'll be in charge. Doesn't matter who. I'll be in charge. I'll take care of you. I will be the authority. And then we have the argument. Who's the authority? Who gets to be in charge? Kansas Supreme Court? Kansas legislator? The governor? The teachers? The students? The parents? Who's in charge here? Who gets to be the authority? Thank goodness we're in the church. Oh. 2 weeks ago, the United Methodist Church had our every 4-year general conference where representatives from the United Methodist Church around the world came together in Portland, Oregon to make important decisions about the future of the United Methodist Church. They look at the Book of Discipline, our guidebook. They try to make decisions to guide the life of the church, and they did a great job for 3 days. For the first 3 days, they argued about how to make a decision. This is our church, folks. 3 days they argued about how to make a decision. Now, the argument was, when it comes to matters of human sexuality and deciding what the right way is, whatever the right way is, instead of voting, we're going to substitute Rule 44 for this particular matter. And instead of voting, we're going to come together in small groups and discuss this, and we're going to arrive at an agreement amongst ourselves. Took them 3 days to decide, nah, we're not doing that, we're just going to vote. But then, since somebody was finally in charge and had the authority, when it came to matters of human sexuality, They didn't vote. They said, bishops, we'd like for you to form a commission and study this a little more. I tell you what, we're kicking that can down the road. It's getting dated up. Authority. Who gets to decide? Who gets to decide? We're better Christians than you because we understand what God wants better than you do. Voices. Authority. Oh. Our story from the Gospel of Luke seems pretty simple on the surface. Jesus had just finished the Sermon on the Plain, which is similar to the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. One of his teachings in the Sermon on the Plain was, love one another, love your enemy, do good to those who don't like you. All of a sudden, he was in Capernaum, and some Jewish elders came to him representing a centurion, a member of the foreign occupying army, and said, we have this centurion who has a slave who's ill. He's heard about you and he would like for you to come heal his slave. So Jesus went. But on the way, the centurion sent other friends and said, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come to my house. Simply say the word. My slave will be healed. Because I'm one under authority. I say to one soldier, go, and she goes. I say to another, come, and he comes. And I say to my slave, do this, and they do it. And then Jesus responded and said, I found faith in Israel, but I've not found such great faith. And when those friends went home, they found the slave healed. What if we dig into the story just a little bit deeper? Jesus had just taught, love your enemies, do good to those who would hate you. And he was suddenly put to the test. People came from a foreigner requesting him to come heal a foreigner occupying Israel. Not sure why Jesus didn't give the response he has given in other places. I came only to the house of Israel. But instead, these Jewish elders came to see Jesus. These are the same Jewish elders with whom he was fussing and fighting all the time, who really didn't like him. And they said, we'd like for you to do this. And he did it. What's going on here? This is really strange. Every other reference to Jewish elders is people against Jesus, and now they want him to come heal this outsider. And Jesus goes. Okay, sounds good. They have a pretty convincing argument. This centurion, he's really a nice guy. He loves our people. Oh yeah, he built a synagogue for us. You need to come do this. This is good stuff. Then on the way, the centurion sends friends. They've said, he's worthy. And the centurion says, I am not worthy. And then this whole thing about being one under authority and recognizing this. And Jesus marvels at finding such faith outside of Israel. Authority. Speak the word, and it will be done. How do we find faith in authority? How do we figure out what authority we're going to trust? That phone I answered was really my wife's phone. Now, I do want to say off the top, she did not participate in this, except for putting up with me. But that was my wife's phone. It was one of those ancient bag phones, and you had to have it in the car, plugged in, and all the time. And it was a real novelty. but I got it for her so she could be safe from the road. I didn't have one. I desperately wanted one. I thought, man, this is cool. A phone right here in the car. Now, most of you, if not all of you, are way too young to remember in the olden days. See, we were headed west on I-70. That's an interstate, where you can just really travel freely and quickly, except the speed limit was 55. I mean, it took 7 years to get 10 miles in those days. It was terrible. But I always put it on 59. Here's this call. You're going 59. I thought, they don't stop you going 59, do they? Well, so, yeah, right, this is Highway Patrol. Where am I? How did you get this? Well, we have your number. We clocked you from the airplane. 59 miles an hour. I don't know about this. No, what do you mean? All right, where am I? Oh, we clocked you at mile marker 143. I look over, just as I'm going past mile marker 144. Digital readout 59, mile marker 144. Oh, so I don't see any highway patrol or anything. What am I supposed to do? Pull over to the next rest stop and wait. Next sign, rest area, 5 miles. Okay. So I hang up. I recount this. And Sharon, in all of her wisdom, says, how would they get your number? I don't know. They can do things like that. Yeah, they can. I mean, I was a believer. I mean, hey, they got me at 59, digital readout, 59. Mile marker on the dot. Rest area, right there. Well, we fuss about it. She says, oh, it had to be our friend Rick. This is the same guy in the tornado you were talking about. Went outside and texted me a picture of the tornado, okay? So I tried to call. Our daughter was staying with Rick and his wife, and we were going out to pick her up, go on vacation. And I tried to call, the phone rings and rings and rings, no answer. Try again and again, no answer. Well, couldn't have been him. So we start going through the list of, a very short list, of people who might try to prank me like this. Short list, short. Can't think of anybody. So I pull over the rest area and park. And I'm looking around for the highway patrol to show up. So I sit there, waiting. Wait, I'm sorry, but it gets worse. So finally, through a great deal of rigmarole, I finally get a hold of directory assistance and find the number for the Highway Patrol headquarters in Topeka. I call, and I said, hi, this is John Martin. I'm sitting here in the rest area waiting for the Highway Patrol. You called me. And the lady on the phone said, well, how would we get your number? And I said, I don't know. You just know how to do that stuff. No, we don't. I said, well, I'm waiting. And she said, well, I don't see any record of any kind of activity in your area, sir. I say, okay. And I put the phone down, and I finally say to Sharon, well, I guess we can go on if they want to get me. I drove all the way to Scott City, scared to death. So we go in, hi, how you doing? We sit down and visit. And finally, after a while, I say to Rick, did you call me? He says, what? Oh, yeah, I did. I said, are you kidding me? I stopped at the rest area. And he said, you did? I thought you figured out who it was. I didn't think a thing about it. I went back out and finished mowing the yard. I didn't answer the phone. how'd you know how fast I go? Oh, well, I talked to Annie, and she says you always put it on 59. Mile marker, just a good guess. He waited about an hour till after we left Salina. He knew we were getting close to the rest area. I mean, it just all fell into place. But I believed him. It was the voice of authority. And I trusted it. Sharon didn't. But I did. Now somebody after 8:30 said, well, that wasn't really faith, John, that was fear. Doesn't matter, I still trusted. So what authority, what voice do we trust? There are plenty of voices claiming authority out there. We can rattle them all off. People who are willing to commit violence and atrocities. People who say we have the power and you don't. People with so much money we can't imagine. People who have positional authority and say, well, we're in charge, we get to decide, you don't. And people who say, well, I'm sorry, but I understand God better than you do. I know that the Bible is true, or this is true, or that's true, or this is true, and you've got to listen to me. I know God and you don't. What voice of authority shall we listen to when that phone rings in our life? I know most of us, if not all of us, would really appreciate having a word and say, well, this is exactly in whom or in what you ought to trust. But about the closest we can come is to look at the unfolding of our story. What made Jesus say, I have found faith in this centurion? I don't recall any statement that the centurion said, well, yeah, I believe in you, Jesus. I believe you're the only Son of God. I believe you're the Messiah. I believe you're the chosen one of Israel. I believe you are God. I believe you have all power and all authority. And so I know you can heal my slave. No, it was just, I heard about you and heard that you're kind of a healer guy. Come heal my slave, would you please? And for some reason, Jesus decided to respond to these Jewish elders who were his enemy to go heal the slave of an enemy. What we have going on here, folks, is a whole lot of vulnerability. Jesus was vulnerable because he just told his followers, love your enemy and do good to those who hate you. And now he was being invited to go heal a loved one of an enemy. Those Jewish elders, they must have been willing to be vulnerable in that moment and go to Jesus and say, we need your help. That centurion, he was a powerful man. He was a man in positional authority who apparently was a man of some means. Used to telling people, do this, don't do this. And yet he was vulnerable enough to say, I think my slave is dying, and desperately, vulnerably reaching out to some guy he'd only heard about and say, would you come heal him? And then he was even more vulnerable. The centurion did the unthinkable. He changed his mind. And he recognized, he said, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come to my house. But I think if you'll say the word, my slave will be okay. And he recites this litany of being an authority. but implicitly he recognizes what the real authority is. Isn't that fascinating? This whole story never mentions God. Not one time. And yet, God is right there. Now, what is the authority here? Well, you all know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the authority here is love. Jesus acted out of love. The centurion acted out of love. The Jewish elders acted out of love. The one in whom Jesus trusted is a God of love. And somehow the centurion recognized the power of love. So, what voice, what authority shall we listen to? Well, I really can't tell you specifically, but I can say we probably ought to listen through the filter of love, mercy, and justice. And when we hear the authority saying, I am doing this on behalf of, in the name of love, I'm willing to be vulnerable and take a risk. Maybe we can trust it. You're going to say, John, that wishy-washy love stuff doesn't work. I can't convince you. All I can say is, it worked for Jesus. Yeah, thanks a lot, John. He got murdered on a cross. Well, that's true. But in being vulnerable and trusting love, trusting God, God raised him from the dead to new life. And if you and I are really willing to trust love, then we too will be raised to new life. Choose life. Choose God. Finding faith is actually trusting